The next thing is in verse 7. And some seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. Look also in verse 18 and 19. Now these are the ones sown among the thorns. They are the ones who hear the word, and the cares of the world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for other things entering in choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. And now they're the thorns. Now there are the people who want to be worldly Christians, who want to have this name of being a Christian and some semblance of a relationship with Jesus, but yet they want all of the things of the world at the same time. They want Jesus and the world. I heard Dr. Lawson just this week say that they want to be on the narrow and the wide path at the same time. And friends, you can't be on two paths at one time. Either you're on the narrow path that leads to life or the wide path that leads to destruction. And you can't be in both places because they're going two different directions. And so those who want the things of the world, who are Christian pretenders, and the things of the world comes up and it strangles the fruit. You say, well, I'm not sure who Jesus was talking to there. Do you remember the Pharisees? The Pharisees who walked around in elaborate robes with all sorts of things hanging off of them, and who prayed in public so that they could be seen and heard, who condemned people in public because they weren't quite as righteous as they were. I want you to hear how Jesus describes them in one of the greatest confrontations, I think, in the New Testament. In Matthew chapter 23, verses 27 and 28, Jesus looks at the scribes and Pharisees. He says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness." You see, the Pharisees, they wanted the things of God, but they wanted the riches of the world and the recognition of the world. Let's see, remember what it said. Look what it says in verse 19. "And the cares of the world and deceitfulness of the riches and the desires of other things entering choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful." So quickly, before we go on to the last one, I just want to say this one thing to us as a church, because again, it would be easy for us to say, well, those are not believers, or those are people who are outside of the church. Yesterday, I was on the tractor and I was brush hogging, and I was clipping a bunch of weeds and things that had grown up. When I got done, Aaron came up. He said, "Man," he said, "that looks the best it's ever looked." And I said, "Well, it looks good because there's grass underneath the weeds." But what was interesting is that when I was running that brush hog, those weeds were waist high to shoulder high, but the grass was only this high. And here's the reason. It's because those weeds that had grown up had been choking out the grass. They couldn't get to the sunlight, and they couldn't get all the moisture that they were supposed to have. And so there was growth and there was life in that grass, but the grass wasn't growing like it should because there were too many weeds. Listen, church, there's too many weeds in the church. There's too much stuff in your lives. If you're not growing the way that God has called you to be growing, if you're not producing fruit, listen, none of that grass had went to seed. None of it. Because it had never got to that point in maturity that it could. There's too much stuff in our lives, church. We want to look like the world too much. We want to sound like the world too much. I'm not talking collectively. I'm talking individually. Listen, hearken these words. There is too much stuff in our lives. We care too much what the world thinks about who we are. We care too much about the latest thing and the latest craze. I know, I'm the guy who just said the TikTok video. I get it. Judge me. What is it that's cutting off the growth? Christian, examine yourself this morning. What's cutting off your growth? What is it that's keeping you from that relationship with Jesus? What's keeping you, listen to this, from reaching to the Son? Cut it down